Number 13. More and more computer programs that provide solutions to mathematical problems in engineering are being produced, and thus it is increasingly unnecessary for practicing engineers to have a thorough understanding of fundamental mathematical principles. So number 13 is saying, hey, we're having more and more computer problems that are solving things, and so we don't need our engineers to actually understand what they're doing as much anymore. Consequently, in training engineers who will work in industry, less emphasis should be placed on mathematical principles so that space in the engineering curriculum will be available for other important subjects. So they're saying when we're training these engineers, we shouldn't worry as much about training them on this aspect because we know that computers can take care of this, right? And so we should leave space for other things. So we're trying to weaken this argument, right? Their conclusion is saying, hey, we should place less emphasis on the mathematical principles. So perhaps one good way to weaken this would be to say we should place more emphasis, right? That could be a good way to weaken that. We could also weaken this support that they use. They say they want us to place less emphasis on these principles so that we can have more space in the curriculum for other important subjects. Maybe there are no other important subjects. Maybe this is the most important subject or something like that. So maybe that could be another way to weaken this as well. So looking at the answer choices, the effective use of computer programs that provide solutions to mathematical problems in engineering require an understanding of mathematical principles. So this is saying, hey, to use computer programs, we need the ability to understand these mathematical principles. So this is saying to even use these programs that solve these problems, we need to understand this. So that means that engineers would need to understand these mathematical principles, right? Because or else they wouldn't be able to use the programs that can solve them. And so A seems like it would weaken the argument really well. So I think A could be a really good answer. I'm going to leave that open. Many of the computer programs that provide solutions to mathematical problems in engineering are already in routine use. Okay, so that just strengthens the argument, if anything, right? This is just saying, hey, we already use these computer programs that can solve these problems, and they can use the fundamental mathematical principles in the programs, and they don't have to maybe understand it themselves. And so I don't think this is a great answer. Development of composites and other such new materials has meant that the curriculum for engineers who will work in industry must allow time for teaching the properties of these materials. Let's see. So that one's saying, hey, they've made new materials, which mean that the curriculum has to allow for time to teach these materials. That's a little bit vague, right? That doesn't directly tie back into the stimulus super well. So I'm a little skeptical of that one. I don't really like that one. I don't see how that would directly weaken our argument, right? That we don't have to place less emphasis on these mathematical principles. In the curriculum, this is more talking about time. D, most of the computer programs that provide solutions to mathematical problems in engineering can be run on the types of computers available to most engineering firms. So this is again similar to B, saying that, hey, these computer programs, we can use them. So that kind of just strengthens the argument, right? If we can use the computer programs instead, then maybe we should place less emphasis on the mathematical principles. So D is also not the best answer to weaken this. The engineering curriculum already requires that engineering students be familiar with and able to use a variety of computer programs. Okay, so this is, again, strengthening the argument, right? Because this is saying, okay, the curriculum already tells engineering students how to use these computer programs, so maybe they don't need the mathematical principles because the computer programs can solve the mathematical problems instead, and the engineers don't have to understand these mathematical principles to do it themselves. So E also here doesn't really weaken the argument. So the answer here would be A.